When a musician or artist dies, they leave themselves behind through their work and the public image that they created during their life. However, something else that they leave behind is a trove of finished and unfinished music that was never released to the public. Posthumous albums are a collection of this music put together by the studio, family, or the right holders behind these artists. These albums can serve to give a look into the final thoughts of an artist who has passed, or can just be a collection of various songs that had never been released to the public. A posthumous album can be a very emotional listen if put together well. However, if not handled well, or released for the wrong reasons, a posthumous album can garner a lot of heavy criticism by the public and can leave a stain on the incredible body of work that an artist has already released. When a posthumous album is released, it is up to whoever is holding the rights of that artist's music and whatever studio was behind them to put together the album. An artist could have left a whole completed album behind that just needs finishing touches, or they could have left pieces of songs that would need to be assembled and put together into a cohesive album before release. It is up to the family and right holders to make a decision on whether they believe that an album should be released based on how much work has been left behind. Artists that have known about the fact that they may die in the near future have created albums specifically for a posthumous release. Freddie Mercury knew about his encroaching death around the time him and Queen were recording Made in Heaven, which made for interesting topics tackled on the album, but it was released in 1995, 4 years after the death of Mercury, making it their posthumous release. The fact that whoever is releasing the posthumous albums never truly knows what the artist may have wanted is the hardest thing when releasing a record after death. A lot of these albums can have influence from studios or family members looking to make an extra dollar off of the extreme success of their deceased. This is where posthumous releases can become messy and can end up being viewed by the public as something unnecessary that should not have been released, rather than a meaningful release that adds to the artist's catalog. Here are some examples of posthumous albums that were released to that kind of response. The release of Michael in 2010 was one that will be remembered as an extremely unnecessary addition to the legendary catalog of Michael Jackson. This was the first attempt at putting out an album after the death of Jackson. The songs that were included felt like they were shells of greater songs already released, and the collaborators that were thrown onto the record, such as Akon and 50 Cent, felt extremely out of place. Another legendary fail of a posthumous record comes in the form of The King and I, a posthumous collaboration between the deceased Biggie and Faith Evans. Biggie and Faith Evans had a real life relationship, but this was a prime example of a cash grab, considering Biggie gets way less featured time on the album compared to Evans, and sometimes it isn't even him performing. Jamal Woolard takes over in place of Biggie on several occasions. The overlong track list, the shameless remixing, gives us what can only be one of the worst posthumous record releases of all time. On the other hand, when the family and studio behind an artist has been left with a record that is finished, near finished, or has laid out what they would like to be done with their work, you can get a posthumous album that is an incredible experience and dives into the mind of the artist before their untimely death. I think that one of the best examples of this is the release of Mac Miller's Circles in 2020, 2 years after his death. Circles is an example of when a family and studio handles work an artist had been completing before his death extremely lovingly and carefully. First off, the album is entirely Miller. There are no collaborators thrown onto the record just to pad time. Second off, knowing about Mac Miller's issues with substance abuse and his struggle with mental health before he died, makes this album a very important one to release since it deals with those subjects as well as diving deep into subjects of loneliness and feeling lost in the world. This is the only album to be released by his studio and family after his death. They handled his final work very carefully and it came out to an incredible reception. After going over a few examples, you can see where the biggest factor in whether a posthumous album should or should not be released is. It really comes down to what material was left by the artist, how important that material may be to their legacy, and how much care the studio and family behind the artist puts into the record. In both examples of bad releases, the studios did not seem to care about the artist's vision and threw together projects that could make them more money considering the artist's major success. However, this can be dangerous and can leave a mark on great legacies. In the case of Circles, much time and care was put into it, and it provided a great cap to Miller's body of art. I personally think that posthumous albums are very important in the music industry and should continue to be worked on and released, but they need to be released for the right reasons and the right care, and with the right care put into them. Thank you.